Well, you realize that we scientists underestimated the sophistication of the human brain.
When it comes to the value you bring to your work or in life, your most vital skill, your greatest ability as a human being, is your ability to think critically. Join us as we point out how our brains tend to lead us down some bad paths and what you can do to take control and get right.
Brain Profits, are you ready?
Yep.
Then let's start the show.
Sitting on your shoulders is the most complex object in the known universe.
Welcome back. We're here today to talk about the law of attraction, but not just in the way that you probably have already heard about it, but in a way that says what you got to do to kind of get your brain behind your ability to attract what you would like in your life. Now, I know that the law of attraction is kind of controversial in that there's no actual scientific data that would support that it works, but there's a whole lot of people that talk about it. And there's a whole lot of people that encourage people to be and work in a certain way that attracts information and attracts other people, attracts money, attracts things that you would like towards yourself. And so we're going to jump on it today and see how your brain would play a part in making that happen. So Philippe, talk to me, man. What do you know about the law of attraction? And do you believe in it, first and foremost?
So the law of attraction is, I guess it's a philosophy that essentially says that, if you think positively, you're going to attract positive things to yourself. If you think negatively, you're going to attract negative things to yourself. So it is something that I believe in, especially with knowing how the brain works. You can certainly talk about it from perspective of energy and perspective of vibration level. I think today we'll just talk about it from the perspective of the brain. And, I'll start it out by saying that the brain is always looking to prove you right. And so if you're focused on things that are positive, it's going to point out other positive things for you. And if you're focused on things that are negative, it's going to point out things that are negative. So for instance, if you're somebody who tells yourself that you are a good person, it's going to point out, all the good things that you have done and a lot of the good things that occur in the world. If you're somebody who tells yourself that you are fat, it's going to be like, oh, see, there's that little bit of cellulite right there. See that here, you jiggle in a way that you shouldn't. See here, your stomach is a little bit bigger than it should be. So your brain is always looking to prove you right. And when we think about that from the perspective of the law of attraction, for me, it makes sense for that reason and for a whole host of other neurological reasons.
When you talk about it from, or when we talk about it from, how do we get our brains involved, at least from the standpoint of the cognitive side, is how would you make something like that work for you? And so when I looked into the law of attraction and I'm looking into like, okay, well, what is it essentially trying to align you with? It's trying to get people to be aligned with their desires, right? Their desires, how do you get past the struggle? How do you, become the person you would like to be, and then have some of the attributes and relationships around you that you like, right? And a lot of it takes what, I already know is hard work. There is no easy way to get to where you'd like to be, but you have to be in position to get to what you'd like to be. And that's where getting your brain behind you helps you. And so there's really 5 major things that I look at and that we look at when it comes to, okay, how would you want to get your brain and specifically your cognitive skills behind what you're trying to do, if you're trying to be, work with or work within the confines or the concept of the law of attraction. And the number one is going to be, you have to work on your ability to focus. Number 2, you got to get better at positive thinking. The big thing, and number 3, you got to figure out how to improve on in your visualization. Number 4, you have to develop some type of belief system or faith system for yourself. And then number 5, you got to understand how to create and set goals so that you can accomplish them. And so I'm going to talk about start off with the ability to focus first, and then I'm going to roll over to you for the positive thinking real fast, because I know that you have these great numbers behind, you know, the amount of negative stuff that happens just naturally. So when we look at the ability to focus, we're really looking at a person's ability to kind of capture their thoughts, right? So they can focus on their desires, right? And so this really doesn't it relies heavily on a couple of cognitive skills: attention, concentration, and then mindfulness. Most people don't understand how little or how attention works. There's multiple different types of attention. The base 3 are going to be sustained, selective, and divided attention. And by improving your attention level, and there are techniques that I'm going to suggest at the end of the show that you can try to jump into to try to improve those 3 things, specifically sustained attention. But if you work in those ways on improving your attention, your concentration, you can effectively affect your ability to focus, right? Effectively improve your brain's ability to focus on what you put in front of you, right? And then positive thinking, moving on to number 2. The law of attraction emphasizes specifically a lot on trying to think positively.
Yep.
Right. Focus on that. And if we're mentioning it, then that means it's not an easy, natural thing to do. Why is that, Philippe? Why do we seem to struggle with thinking positively?
Well, so first of all, I just want to challenge something that you said, because at the beginning you said that there's no easy way to get to where you want to be. See, and I would say you might want to even change the way that you think about that, right? Because it reminds me of like if you're lifting weights, right, and you're about to lift something heavy. And one of the things that sometimes you get encouraged to say when you're about to lift something heavy is, "Oh, this is easy weight. This is easy weight," right? Because you get yourself in that mindset. If you tell yourself something is going to be hard, then you're less likely to do it.
That's a good point. What I meant by not easy was it's going to take hard work. You can't, like, it's almost like the guy who thinks I'm going to be rich by throwing money at Bitcoin and hoping it makes me rich. And for the most part,
a lot of people that it did make them rich for a period of time.
Yeah, but the majority of people that jumped in on that did not get rich. Right. And that's my point on that. But that's why I say not easy. But I get what you're saying. You're right about that. Yeah. Go ahead.
So I think, we got to remember that first and foremost, the primary purpose of your brain is to keep you safe. And so there is a survival advantage to thinking negatively, right? Because it forces you to watch out for any potential threats, right? There's some, I guess, data out there, and I don't know how they collect this data, but there's some data that says you have anywhere between 12,000 to 60,000 thoughts per day, right? And out of those 12,000 to 60,000 thoughts per day, 90 to 95% of them are the same exact thoughts you had yesterday. And so then you can sort of, when you wonder why people are unable to sort of change their lives, it's because they're thinking in the exact same ways that they were thinking the day before and the day before that and the week before that and the month before that and so on. Out of those 12,000 to 60,000 thoughts we have every single day that repeat themselves, 60 to 70% of them are negative. So then not only are people not able to change their lives, but they're not able to create the positive experiences that they want for themselves. Right? The positive changes that they want for themselves are really difficult because our thoughts then govern our actions. Our thoughts govern our feelings and govern our actions. Right? And so that's why it's really important to be mindful of the way that you think about things. And then also, when that thinking is not working for you, to make changes to the thoughts that you do have. And there are ways that you can actually influence and change your thoughts. Right? The first thing is you certainly want to be mindful of what they are, but also changing your experiences helps to change your thoughts. One of the things that I tell my kids is, there's no purpose in arguing with anybody. There's none at all, right? People will, if somebody thinks something, they will double and triple down if you argue with them about it. Instead, what you want to do is you want to give them a completely different experience related to whatever that issue is. right? So having new experiences helps to change the thoughts that you have. Surrounding yourself with people who don't think like you, who didn't grow up like you, also helps to sort of change the thoughts that you have. Reading books helps to change the thoughts that you have. So there are things that you
Right.
can do every day to help to change your thinking.
Yeah. Yeah. So tidbit number one, or thing to do number one, if you want to start having a glimpse into the window of how your thoughts roll, as I would suggest, is the journal. Now you don't have to have a long journal. You could even, I'd say write it with your hand and paper, because that's the most one of the most effective ways for your brain to kind of connect to what you're saying, what you're doing. But if you just have the phone and you need to like just journal a little bit there, even voice journal, do it, and then wait about a month, and then to go back and listen to how you are, what you were talking about. You will see that's a window into how your thoughts have been kind of progressing, especially if you're doing it daily.
Yep.
No, you're right about that though. You definitely want to positive thinking, figuring that out is helps you get past some of the setbacks that sometimes befall us as we try to get to that next level or that next stage. And it's the beginning of figuring out how to control your emotions. It's the beginning of improving on your resiliency and creating what most of us who want to make really serious or bigger levels or stronger impacts in life, it improves our ability to be optimistic. So that's a big deal when it comes to figuring out how to improving your positive thinking. The third, number three, that I got down for this is visualization. One of the coolest things in conversations we had, if you go back to one of our previous episodes when we got to talk to somebody who talked about like, I guess, like, what is like mental teleportation? Remember that? I forget the actual guess, but I'll go back and find her in the notes and throw it out back there for people to listen to. But she talked about basically, kind of like looking ahead and traveling around, projecting yourself, right? And in order to do that, you have to be able to see to some degree where you're going. And so visualization is the art of imagining yourself having something or being somewhere, and then having a particular type of outcome already ahead of you, already in mind, right? Believe the if it, the if as though it were. And so visualization is important for that. What about you, Philippe? What are you seeing? What have you visualized and seen yourself to get to the point where you're at now?
Yeah, I think
You went from a tennis player with a probably to a with a which had a challenge of your mortality kind of immediately. Then you were like, you know what? I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to look at something higher than that. How did you trend up from
this.
seeing a different future for yourself?
So that's a great question. And for people who don't know, I was diagnosed with kidney failure when I was 18 years old. I was in college. I had my first kidney transplant 8 days after graduating medical school. Then my father was my donor. I had a sort of a relapse of the original disease process a few years ago, and then COVID came, and I got COVID, and it wiped out my kidney function. Ended up on dialysis, and was blessed to have another kidney transplant. And this time, my donor was my cousin-in-law, Scott, so somebody who's not even blood related to me. And for me, visualization was really important because there was always a bigger picture that I focused on. There was always a bigger picture that was sort of my North Star, right, that I was trying to get to. So before the first transplant is I was trying to get through medical school. That was the goal, right? And then with the second transplant, it's like, man, I got these kids that I want to live for. I want to impact the world. And knowing as a neurologist, as a brain expert, that we have an entire lobe, the occipital lobe in our brain, that is solely dedicated to vision. Right? It's the only sense that can claim an entire lobe to it. And visualization is so powerful that our brains can't even tell the difference between whether we are visualizing something or we actually did it. So it causes the same changes in the brains to happen. It causes new neurons to be made, networks to be formed, strengthening of those networks. So visualizing what you want your life to be like is incredibly important, and attaching emotion to it, really feeling what it will feel like to accomplish whatever those goals are.
Yeah. And I know from the experience in my work, one of the things that it impacts specifically, and why I'm glad you mentioned, hey, people need to start reading more. And we need to go back to conversating and socializing, kind of put down social media in a way, because one of the things that we've seen impacting people is our ability to imagine and our ability to be creative, like really creative, like, creating new things, not just doing something somebody else already did. Not just being a better dancer, but being creative is really impacted by our brain's ability to visualize, and to sit within that skill set of, thinking up what's not, right. And a big part that helps you do that is your spatial reasoning, which means you kind of got to be around in a 3D space of some sort. Maybe this is where the metaverse is going to help people out. Maybe.
I think it's gonna make all this stuff a lot worse.
Maybe I know we talk about that, but getting your spatial reasoning stronger will help your brain kind of see things that you didn't realize you saw.
Yeah,
and then it'll help. I bet you. Although I don't know if there's a study that will talk about this, but I bet you that it would also help us have bigger, better dreams, right? Which ties back into that optimism standpoint, right? You have bigger, better dreams of what it could be for everybody else. I look at some of these, I watched a special over the weekend where it was about Seattle, and more than it was about San Francisco, but Seattle and their homelessness problem, and seeing the amounts of people that just kind of live in the streets, and just, the way that people are dealing with things. I'm thinking like, man, we have so much. If you fly from this side of the country to California, you see so much uninhabited space where you would think, man, could we not test the future of way of materials, maybe, where we put, not as an experiment, but we take people who necessarily can't provide for themselves, for their homeless in those areas, and say, hey, we're going to help you provide for your, have a home with these new materials, the advanced materials that we're working on. And you create communities that we currently don't have, and that I'm sure, I would think to some degree, some of them would be maybe willing to see through, to work, help the rest of us and help the rest of society kind of help push it through, rather than just having studies where we're just saying, hey, we got this new drug out here. If we take this new experimental drug that could potentially, cause you schizophrenia, we'll give you a couple $100. We can say, hey, we want to try some advanced materials, right? And, here maybe some minor risk, but in general, you'll have a roof over your head, right? And you don't have to live under trash, and you can take showers, and you can, all types of things that we could do, even where we use new ways of farming, especially in arid areas. How do we do that? Anyways, that's sort of the things that I think of when we think of the things that we could dream of, and we can visualize if we were leveling up in those ways. You see that barren land as you fly across the country too? Because I know you've been flying.
Yeah, all the time, man.
It's wild.
I mean, you drive through different parts of different states, and there's so much just land that's uninhabited, unused. Obviously, you've got wildlife, you've got
yeah, of course. I'm not saying
so,
that,
but yeah, it sounds like you should run for mayor of that little town that you live in over there in Tennessee.
No, we don't. In my little town, I don't even know if we even have much homelessness as an issue. I never, at least if they.
I thought you were gonna say we don't even have a mayor in my little. That's what you're gonna say. We've got no government, and you got 2 mayors to that little town. Jesus Christ.
you have in this city area, we have a mayor in the county, and you have a mayor in the city. So in both cities,
sounds like a lot of confusion and a lot of conflict.
Sometimes I don't know. I don't know. I don't ever see them beefing, at least not in the streets. So I don't know. Maybe they have some things that they go behind the scene, but I'm not really political when it comes to trying to figure out what's going on between these political rivals.
Yeah,
I mean, we need to work. That's another thing. Maybe we'll talk off the brain on politics one day. But to some degree, next thing on my list is belief and faith. The law of attraction requires a deep belief and faith that a person needs to be able to manifest. And it's just interesting because the reason why I think that is because, going back to a little bit of positive thinking, things sometimes don't go your way for more than just 10 minutes. And if it doesn't go your way for more than 10 minutes, then you're going to have to rely on something a little bit deeper than just being like, generally optimistic. You have to have this almost innate spiritual sense that it's going to work out for you.
Yeah.
If you keep plugging away in this way. And that's where that is. Philippe, man, because I gotta go back to you with the health issues, man, because that's like life and death sitting right there. And like I said before, you probably had to deal with your mortality sooner than most. What did you lean on?
Yeah, I mean, I sort of lent, for me, it was this belief that I was meant to do more, you know, even though I did face my mortality, and there's a lot of emotional stuff that I went through, especially when I was younger, the why me, the anger, all of that stuff. But it was like, I never really saw myself dying young. I always saw like, okay, this is something that I need to get through, and then, I'll be able to do this, 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 or this. And I think sometimes, and I'll give an example. So dialysis had been one of my biggest fears, right? Because when I was in the hospital seeing patients, people who are on dialysis looked like they were on death's door, and they looked like they had resigned themselves to dying. And so when I found out I needed to do dialysis, I had a choice to make, which was I going to do dialysis like I saw everybody else do it, or was I going to do it my own way? And so I decided to do it my own way. I traveled, I worked out, I helped patients, I helped clients, I played sports. And sometimes people ask the question, okay, well, what do I have to do to achieve this goal? And I think that the question that they really need to ask themselves is, who do you need to be? Because you need to be that person first, right? A lot of people, and I see this all the time as a doctor, they have a diagnosis and they live up to that diagnosis. They become that illness. For me, it was, I need to be somebody who's healthy and successful. And health and success then follows you.
No, you're 100% correct on that one. Or, I mean, I think you're correct on that one. If you notice, well, I don't know if you noticed, one of the things that hasn't popped up yet in at least your brain being behind these different concepts is confidence. And belief and faith is what seems to be the driver behind building self-confidence, right? And believing in your ability to impact the world in that positive way will definitely do that. And then also it helps with, self-efficacy, right? Your ability to go, oh, I made a mistake. Let me go fix that and make it better for the next time, right? Yep. Leveling up. And so, yeah, man, that's dope that you were able to build confidence in that way. And it probably didn't help that, you were conditioning, you from being an athlete, like the way you were conditioning yourselves to like, want to win.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. And I think, you brought up faith a couple of times, and faith is really believing something's going to happen, even when you have no evidence of it yet, even when you don't see it yet. And I think that is incredibly important, because that is a driver that drives you to continue to, whether it's work at it, fight for it, do what you need to do to achieve that goal. And so I think having faith is crucial.
That's true. And then being able to be the guy to say, okay, that particular goal I can go after.
Right? Yeah. I mean, you can go after any goal.
That's true. And speaking of goals, we're about to talk about goal setting in a second. Are there any goals that you actually thought of and you're like, hey, that's not a goal for me, that's a goal for somebody else?
No. Because if I think of it, then clearly it's a goal for me. Because why else would I think of it? Why else would God sort of bless me with that thought? Why else would the universe put that thought in my head? Clearly it's for me.
Interesting.
Yeah, I've never had something.
I would say there's been some ideas or thoughts that I've had, and I'm like, that's not something I'm gonna work on.
I've never had that experience.
Oh wow, well, it's just me then.
No, I'm not saying it's just you. I've just never had that experience.
Yeah. Where I was like, no, I meant like maybe
where I'm like, nah, God, that's for somebody else.
Well, hey, if you look at from biblical characters, there are a couple people that were like, "Nah, God, I'm good."
Yeah, dude. Listen, some people, everybody's different.
Yeah, no, that's dope. That maybe you haven't had time. Maybe you haven't had time to say no. Oh man, not to say that that's not a mistake though, right? I'm sure it has been the comments when you talk or comment about the show. If you've ever had a goal that you said no to, or thought that you said no to like that, or if you're like Philippe and you try to tackle all the ones that pop into your head. Well, all right. When it comes to goal setting, the law of attraction effectively wants us to set clear and specific goals, right? Which again, I'm gonna go back to, man. We have to start writing stuff down. In front of me is a board of some goals that I have to accomplish. Which today is gonna be a busy day. I got some blogs I got to write.
Yeah.
To get ready for some other things that are going on for the rest of the year, kind of finish out the year. But at the same time, we need to have clear and specific goals, right? Which then, of course, requires going back to strong cognitive function skills related to planning, organization, and then goal directed behavior, which, yes, there is an actual behavior that you actually have to be in order to make sure that you are goal oriented so that you can go after what you want. What do you got? What do you do for yourself? I know you got the book, and this is plug for Philippe right now. Plug the journal, the goal journal.
Oh, yeah. So
Unless it's not a thing.
No, I've got I've got a digital planner, the Take
Yep.
Charge of Your Brain digital planner, which also helps which certainly helps with the goals, helping you accomplish goals as well as some other things. Helps with some affirmations, some inspirational quotes, as well as the way you schedule out your day and your life. Um, and goals are incredibly important. Having short-term as well as long-term goals that keeps you motivated. It keeps you moving in the right direction. Like I know after this, my goal is to make a really nice thing of oatmeal with some berries and get some healthy food in me and get plenty of water in me. Right.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
part of sort of my health goals. Right. And then I've got business goals that I've got to tackle later today. I've got kid goals I got to tackle later today. I've got goals for my
Oh,
uh
wait a second. Go back. You about to have more kids?
no,
What's
no, in
happening? You about to
terms of
join
things,
me?
no, things that I need to do for my sons. Right.
Oh, okay. I thought you were about to join my world. I was like, oh,
No,
man,
no,
you're
no,
resetting. You're gonna
no,
energize yourself.
no, today's a rest day in terms of the hitting the gym. So, but the rest, allowing my body to rest, again, that's a goal. And so I think, yeah, you have to have a clear image, a clear picture of what it is that you want to accomplish, right? And then sort of take the steps necessary to make that happen.
Yeah, that's a big deal. You have any behaviors that you had to modify from the past to help you get better at, being goal oriented?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's you know,
What was number one? What was the number one thing you had to change? I can tell you, I'm gonna tell you my number one after you tell me yours.
I think probably number one. Oh, here's something I changed in the last couple of years, man. I stopped listening to the freaking news.
News.
Dude, the news.
Oh no, you gotta listen to the news.
No, I mean that has done wonders for my life. Talk about law of attraction. News is so damn negative that you just listen to that. It gets into your brain. It wires certain neural networks, and man, it'll track all the negative things to you that you'll see in the news. Plus, it'll make you angry. Take the
That's
news
probably
out,
true.
and shoot, life is good.
Yeah, but that's a interesting. So that's a catch 22 for me because I was over the weekend. I don't know if people know, and by the time people listen to this, hopefully everything's on the up and up. But there was a financial crisis it seemingly averted this weekend. If you heard of SVB, Silicon Valley Bank went down prior, I think like Thursday of last week. So this is mid-March, early mid-March. And then after they went down, they were about to, I guess, default on paying people back. And another bank was about to go down. And so the Fed stepped in and said, we'll be the backstop, making sure that anybody who is banking with that bank their funds would be available to them. And so, the banking system was about to go through a financial crisis. So I called one of my friends when I saw it happen. And I was like, hey, man, what's going to go on? What's going to happen? Because I started thinking about it as a business owner myself, like, my clients wanting to, pause or whatever because of such a thing, how that's going to be affect us. And so, for maybe, the 20 minutes or so between the bank going down and the Fed picking up saying, hey, we're going to stop everything or we're going to fix the problem. I did have a little bit of a concern, although I do know that I don't control any of that. Whether it happened well or it happened not, Doug Mapp is not going to be able to, effectively change any of the decisions that were made in that world. But I can change how I kind of think and address, how I handle myself in that realm. So you're right about that when it comes to, the news being a negative impactor on you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think one of the big things for me is that I am now very mindful of what I feed my brain in terms of there are certain movies I will not watch, certain documentaries I will not watch.
Like what? Chainsaw Massacre?
I mean, I'm not gonna watch those, but like, listen, I'm not watching slavery movies or even even the movie Get
Will
Out.
Smith. Oh yeah.
I don't
Get Out.
Like, why would I want to watch that movie? People are like, it's such a good movie. You need to see it. I'm like, why would I want to watch a movie that's gonna piss me off?
So that's interesting. That's all.
Like, no.
See it.
So listen, I am so mindful.
But that's interesting
about what I feed my brain from what I watch, what I read. Like I said, I don't watch the news anymore. Even being mindful of what I drink, what I eat, all of that. And you have to be, if you want to be happy, healthy, and as successful as possible, you have to be very mindful of what you're feeding this.
I like that, like you said, to be as happy as possible. So if you're filling up your cup with something and you don't want to spill it out, then these are the steps you got to take. No, you're right.
And that even includes who you're surrounding yourself with. Like, if you're somebody that is too negative, you're somebody I know comes with drama. If you're somebody I know that, there's a problem every time you're around, you might be family. I'm not even going to say I may love you, but even if I do, I'm going to have to hold you at a freaking distance because I have to be so careful what goes in here.
No, you're right. I like that. That's a good idea. So my number one that I had to modify is my sleep habit. My sleep habit. That was the number one change that I had to make. Getting in not just a proper amount of sleep, but turning the TV off. So unlike you, I have a TV in my bedroom. Yeah, I know, but that's
that. I was gonna say that's that married life. You put the TV in the bedroom. The bedroom is only
that has never stopped us. I'll tell you that right now.
The bedroom, I tell patients and clients all the time, the bedroom, two things happen in the bedroom: sleep and sex.
Yeah, I know.
Electronics out, get all the unnecessary stuff out of the bedroom.
Yeah, I know. We got no problems there because we got the two new kids, so that ain't a problem. But
might be a big problem now with two new kids.
No, but getting the proper amount of sleep, but then also having that the schedule where you say, okay, I'm gonna get up at this time and do those things, these particular activities, especially when I became an entrepreneur, right? It's different than having a job where you got to punch in and that type of thing. So scheduling my time and my sleep appropriately was like the number one thing that I had to do. So that's number one. That's my top one. So yeah, man, that's how we did it. But yeah, so overall, people, if you want to take the law of attraction, if you've been thinking about the law of attraction and how to kind of get it going, moving forward in your life in a real way, you kind of need to get your brain behind it, because most of the time you and your brain on the opposite sides of how you want to live your life most of the time. So that's why Philippe says, hey, you got to take charge of your brain. That's why I say, hey, you have to work on your brain's ability to think critically and push forward in how you plan things out. Because we know that if you have strong cognitive skills in the areas such as attention, concentration, emotional regulation, optimism, creativity, even some of the harder ones like spatial reasoning and self-efficacy, all these things, your confidence, your goal setting levels up, and you're better equipped to make the law of attraction work for you. All right. And so it's important for you to work on the things that make your brain work at a high level. And so with that, with the Brain Prophets, you heard it here first. We're out.
All right, guys, take care.
Thank you for listening to the Brain Prophets. If anything we said in today's episode resonated with you, let us know in the comments section. We'd love to hear what you think. And don't forget to rate and review us on your favorite podcast platform.